It is 6 o'clock. Before I call is there anything else we need to talk about before the cameras start? I don't think so. I'm gonna call the meeting. What?
She's not
Jan is she's out of town.
Hi, Jan.
So I'm gonna, it's like 4 after 6 o'clock on Tuesday, January 31st, and I will call this meeting of the Town of Bristol Budget Committee to order. Just to go over attendance, we have 5 of the 7 members in the room, so we have a quorum. We have Janet on Zoom, and Walter is an excused absence. Yes.
So 2 things, just for Janet's purposes, there's a delay sometimes between what she hears and what you're saying. So you may have to just have somebody finish speaking and just make sure that Janet has heard everything that someone says.
Before I go any further, Janet, you can hear us, okay?
Yep.
Good, excellent.
And then the second thing is you have to take a roll call vote because you have 1 member online.
Correct. I'm not sure that we have anything on the agenda that's going to require a vote, but if we
No.
do, a vote, we will do roll call.
Even
Minutes,
to
right. Thank
opening the
Even
meeting, I think you have to take a roll call vote to announce who's on what.
Oh, we're not actually voting on the warrant tonight?
I don't vote on calling the meeting. I just call the meeting to order,
All right, so I think you have to announce who's.
which I just did.
Never mind, I'll shut up. You threw me
good.
off this one.
You gonna have sugar and coffee?
I'm gonna drink my coffee and be quiet now.
Okay, so, I don't, other than approving minutes, so we've gone through, just to recap real quick, we've gone through all of the sections on the proposed budget, and while we still have the ability to make changes, by open meeting law, we need to publicize that we're gonna consider those changes, so I don't think we're allowed to do any of that at the meeting tonight, but I don't know that anyone wants to, so that's not a problem. So our first order of new business is to discuss the draft warrant article, which is still in the subject to change, but draft 3 was sent out to everyone electronically earlier this week. Christina, do you want me to, I have actually a couple of questions and comments. Do you want me to start with that, or do you want me to just step back and let you review?
It's up to you. It's up to you how you'd like me to handle this tonight.
Okay.
Is this the same document I have in front of me that was emailed?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to know if there wasn't a revision since I've been emailed.
So I looked on the computers in front of us earlier, within the past half hour, and it's the same document that was emailed to us. I don't believe there's any changes.
So let me just clarify that this is not the final document yet. The board meets Thursday night, and will make their votes on the budget, but I did take a general tally at the last meeting, and the general consensus is that they support all of these articles or they wouldn't be on here. So just to give you that information. The second part of it is there is potential for 1 more warrant article. Will be a discussion with the select board tomorrow, Thursday night. And I can let you know it may be in regards to the public safety building. I don't know how that will be, and I don't know what portion of what the intent of that article will be until they've met Thursday.
Would you like to give them an idea?
Yes.
I do want to do that, but I want to do it in order, so let's hold off on that for a moment.
So this document in front of you is as accurate as can be at this time?
Yep. Right.
Okay.
So first of all, I've got a request, and I think I can just make it to you as the town administrator. I don't know if it needs to be, but I'd like a format change in the budget document.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this to you this afternoon. So if you go to the budget document and you go to line, in the computer, it's line 675. On your piece of paper, it's the last page, page 26. You basically got up above, you got general government operations, then you got water and sewer enterprise fund, and you've got a line there that says total water and sewer enterprise funds. And the number that you get, that we will have in Article 11 to vote on, is the total of water and sewer plus general government operations, and it's not on this spreadsheet. So I want to add a line under total water and sewer,
Or after?
I'm sorry, after total water and sewer, which is total general fund operations and debt service and water and sewer operation funds, and it will be the number that's in Article 11, and that way it will show up to all of the members of the public.
So you want it right before where it says budget total, all funds and warrant articles? One that's essentially budget totals all funds?
No, I want it below total water and sewer and above warrant articles.
Oh, above the warrant article section, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be like a second line that would just say total enterprise, total budget and enterprise
Right.
funds.
So the
included,
line
something like
above, so the line above says general fund says total general fund operations and debt service.
Yeah.
So this line would be that, general fund operations and debt service, and water and sewer enterprise funds. And if I've got it wrong, I'm certainly going to be corrected, but my understanding is that that's the number that goes into Article 11, or warrant Article 11, and I want it in the spreadsheet.
So we're just talking about essentially adding what's on page 22, which is general fund operations and debt services, to water and sewer enterprise fund.
Correct.
Adding those two
Correct.
numbers.
Correct. And then the number that shows up in the warrant article will also show up on the budget spreadsheet. That's what I want.
Which makes sense, because the reason we restructured this was so that you were looking at the bottom line to match your article number, so I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I can
Adding
talk to
together
Bob.
two lines, yeah.
Nope,
makes sense.
we're not, it's not to change anything in the budget, it's just a format change to
Right.
call out a number that's not obvious.
Right,
Okay.
Particularly when this goes in the town report.
Yeah.
Exactly, since this goes in the town report. So, the other comment, so now changing subjects, I just want to point out to everyone, and to Christina particularly, that the section in our budget document, on page 26, under where it says warrant articles, that those lines and some of those, so there are things in the draft 3 of the warrant article that aren't in the spreadsheet, and there are things that are on the warrant article and in the spreadsheet, and the warrant draft 3 article has a number in it, and this spreadsheet has a different number in it.
correct.
So I just want to point out that all needs to get,
Bob won't make the change until the warrant articles are approved.
Okay.
And ready to go, so once the board approves them Thursday, those will be updated as well.
Thank you.
But we'll make sure of that, so.
okay.
Okay,
But I also want to make sure that they're updated as soon as we know what they are, simply because next Tuesday, this committee has to vote on our recommendation on not all, but a
Yeah.
majority of the warrant articles, and I want to make sure we have all the correct information to think about before we get to the vote.
so those will all be in there it'll be in there by Friday, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I think what I'd like to do now is just go through the draft, what's labeled draft 3 of the annual meeting warrant, and ask Christina to,
And focus on the articles that we're.
I was gonna
actually
say, I don't
voting
see reason anything to do with 1 through
Yeah,
10, let's start
skip
on
to
11,
Actually,
and,
Paul, can I?
yes, go ahead.
Speaking of format of this,
Yep.
this has bugged me since the very first day I put my hands on this.
Yep, go ahead,
That the titles of every section are at the bottom of the section.
okay.
Is it just me?
on. Well, I think that's the spreadsheets, essentially.
So, I understand what you're saying, because,
I think it's because it's the total, so it says total executive, and that's at the bottom of your spreadsheet.
Right, so it took me, I guess it's a brain thing. It took me a while, like,
Yeah.
I kept looking at them backwards. This is the first time I had my hands on this
Yeah.
with the select board, and I'm like, why is the title at the top?
well,
We
So
can,
the
look-
average person could,
I was
I'll be
gonna,
honest with you, we can look at that for next year, but we can't do that for
10
this
4,
year.
got it, enough said.
This-
All right.
Thank you.
That is a little too much.
okay,
So-
I'm okay with that. What I was gonna say is it doesn't change the numbers, so
No.
it's not something that I think we need to vote on.
No.
I would bring it back to Bob and the select board, because it's a format change, but it doesn't change the numbers.
I'll do it for you, send it to me.
No,
That's easy, I mean, that's like, easy.
don't get to touch it.
So,
Sorry, thanks.
so let's start with Article 11, since, I mean, we know what it is, this is what we're responsible for, but, And the select board won't vote on this until after our meeting next Tuesday, because we have to vote first, right?
No, they can, oh, well, yes,
My understanding is on all the other article,
Besides
warrant
this one.
articles, select board votes first, and then budget committee votes second. But on Article 11, budget committee has to vote
That's
first.
correct.
right. So you,
So we'll vote next Tuesday.
and you're gonna have to have a special meeting.
Why are we gonna have a special meeting?
Carol Brown,
Excuse me?
the select board will.
What?
You're gonna have a special meeting.
About that other thing?
No, on Article 11. I did not,
Pick up on that?
yeah, I should have picked up on that.
So for most of the warrant article, for all of, Carol, for all of the other warrant articles where both the select board and the budget committee vote on a recommendation,
Okay,
the select board votes first, so you guys
Right.
will vote this week Thursday.
Yep.
And the budget committee votes second, we'll vote next week on Tuesday.
okay,
But on Article 11 for the budget itself, the budget committee has to vote first. So your select board won't get to vote on that until after next Tuesday.
okay.
So, we can talk to the board Thursday, but I think it can be a very brief, quick meeting once that number's set, and that way we can make sure we don't miss any deadlines, so, yeah. Okay,
Carol, go ahead.
So the words general general municipal operations on Article 11, those words aren't in the budget, or are they? And I can't find them. Shouldn't those words line up with these words?
That's what he's talking about.
So the line I just asked to be added to the spreadsheet
Okay,
is that. So instead of calling it general fund operations and debt service and water and sewer, you want to call it what it's called in Article 11, which is general municipal
just
operations.
so people
That's,
can,
it's not a bad idea.
I'm okay with that.
Using
Does
the
that
same
work for you,
exact
Christina?
term
Yeah.
that the state
Let's
uses.
do that. Good call, Carol.
Yeah, I like it.
we can do that.
Thank you.
I don't see a problem with that. If Bob says something different, I'll get back to you, but I don't see a problem with
You
that.
got my email on my phone. Feel free.
or change the words on there to match the words in here, either way, so people.
Well, yeah,
I actually like yours. We'll take the new line in the spreadsheet and call it general municipal operations, because that's what Article.
No, the article's written as the article's written. This comes
Yeah.
from state language, so.
That's
Yeah.
the state language, yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Which
okay.
I've submitted for a pre-review from the state, but we haven't heard back from them yet.
Yeah, if an article is heavily awkwardly written, just
Yeah.
assume it's because of a state law.
Yeah,
These state laws.
Because we're required to do it right like that.
So is there anything else in Article 11 that you think we need to discuss tonight or review, or I don't think there's any. Anyone have any questions about Article 11?
I didn't put a number in there yet, obviously, but once we fix the budget, we'll make sure that number's in there correctly for you.
Thank you. Okay. Article 12?
That's the same as every year.
That's boilerplate, exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. We did spend, it's not in this budget. We did spend about $8,000 out of the contingency fund this year. I can get you an exact number for the public hearing, because it's not in your budget here, but and the rest of it is returned to the general fund out of that 25,000.
Yep.
Was that for the library?
The library, and then there was a last minute community garden that we had to book somewhere. So we booked the amount that they were over there, and they're paying us back this year. Because when we ordered the supplies, we ordered a little bit. When we ordered their supplies, it came out a little bit over what they had for funds. So we booked it in the contingency, and they're getting a $500 payment, which will offset that this year. So, and that money will go right back to the general fund. So.
Okay. Any committee members have any questions about Article 12? Not hearing any, let's move on to Article 13.
Is this a lower dollar amount than last year?
It will be lowered again. We are gonna lower it to, $10,000. I just found that out today. So it is a lower amount than last year. It will, obviously, it's gonna be a little lower than the past years. We have a 3-year contract with the current fireworks provider. And so we are gonna have to, unfortunately, not have as big a show as we normally have. It will be a longer show, but the type of fireworks that are being provided are not allowed on a barge unless you have a, electronic.
Yeah.
You have to have electronic, and he shoots them off by hand. So we can continue the show this year for less money, and it won't be as high up in the sky, but we do have a contract with him, so this will be the last year of the contract.
Okay. So Article 13 is probably going to be
10,000, yeah,
Okay.
which will pay for the show and then any entertainment that they provide down
Okay.
there, so.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about Article 13 before we move on? I think that's straightforward. Okay, how about Article 14? This might take a little discussion.
So this is the total, obviously, is 379,000. The only one that, actually, there were two that looked like they changed. But let's start, accrued wages is the amount that's funded, back for if someone leaves, and you have to pay out their pay for the time that they've earned. That's where the payout comes from. So, usually it is a $35,000 fund. You will note last year it was a higher amount because there was a closeout of one of the benefits that the town had.
And it was separated out last year.
Yes,
Too.
yeah.
To its own article.
So the 35,000 is the standard number that they use to fund back that article to make sure that we are covered, or fund back that reserve fund to make sure we're covered in case people leave or retire. They would get paid out their benefits. The assessment reval capital reserve fund is up. That was changed to 45,000, and the reason is the fund is depleted. We are going to need, we determined that we're going to need to increase it to 45,000 for the next few years in order to be able to pay for the reval to be done in 2025.
Christina, what's the balance on that accrued wages fund?
I didn't open that screen, but I can get that for you. Hang on.
But the idea is we essentially hold a percentage of the liability, right?
Correct. And and one of the biggest things to keep in mind too is you have a few employees that have been here for 20 plus years that are gonna be
Yeah.
coming up to retirement.
They're going to be singing happy songs when they retire.
I can give you as of 12/31, will that work?
Okay.
Is that the number here, the 141,000, is that the line you're talking about?
No, that's amount,
No. The 141 was what was
that was
appropriated
what
last
we
year.
appropriated last year, so
Because
that's,
last year they were essentially changing,
We were buying out a program that we were
Yeah.
Oh, it
discontinuing.
says actual as of 12/31, that's why I said that.
actually, if you look at the actual as of 12/31, that's what we paid out. So we appropriated 141, we paid out 141.
Yeah, okay.
So that doesn't tell us the balance, and it's not coming
Oh,
up
got
in
it,
here.
sorry, yeah, okay.
But we can go, trust funds, we can go on it if you want, and I can, while I search for this, so that I don't hold you up.
What was that 141? Was that a single person that was paid out to?
no, that was a change in a benefit
Oh,
of
that's
all
right.
employees that were getting it.
So the bonus pay was eliminated as of December, was made it so that you weren't gonna accrue any more bonus as of December 31st. And the board made a vote to pay that out instead of holding it as a liability. And then nobody can accrue bonus time anymore. That was removed from the benefits, so. And that's what that was for last year. So any employee that had a bonus time, their accounts were closed out and they were paid out. And then that is eliminated. It's no longer a benefit.
Okay, anything else?
I don't have the trust funds with me, but let me look at the top
So
report.
looking at the other lines, so it looks like fire, highway are the same. Police is up $2,000 from last year. and town building maintenance is the same.
So, police also, that was recommended by CIP to increase it because the cost of the vehicle has changed.
Yep.
So in order to make sure that the cost of the vehicle out of the capital reserve was, that's why it went up to $2,000, so.
So again, just to comment, if you look in the right-hand side on our spreadsheet under fire, it actually says 85, and this says 75, so that's another place where Bob's gotta update things.
I have a, oops, PD. Yep, he didn't catch that, yep.
Okay,
I think the CIP recommended 85, but the chief left it at 75, and that may be why.
okay.
But we'll fix that.
I'm not gonna try to negotiate in any of these things because it's the select board that gets to make those decisions. So I might ask clarifying questions, but I'm not gonna try to change anything.
What I'll do, Rob, is email you the trust funds.
Yeah, I'm just
tomorrow.
curious, it's not a, I mean,
And that way you can know, and then I'll email it to the whole group so that you know what's
Please.
in those accounts. Yep.
And I think it's important that when, at the public hearing,
Actually.
when we talk about Article 14, we reiterate the fact that the purpose of it is to essentially even out the tax rate.
To even out the ups and
main
downs.
purpose. The ups and downs,
Yeah,
yeah.
the ups and
Right,
downs,
right.
yep.
To keep a more level taxation, smooth.
Smooth things out.
Yep.
Betty said-
And also it's good financial sense too. You're paying for it ahead of time instead of borrowing it, right?
Yep.
So you're saving some money on interest if you do it like this. So it makes financial sense too.
Let's see, I do have it, Betty Sealer did email it today, actually. So the accrued wages as of the end of December 31st, 2022 was 117,000. Do you wanna know any of the others? Since I have it in front of me now.
I don't, because without knowing what the anticipated spending is, it doesn't.
right,
tell me
it's
a whole lot.
tough to figure that out without talking about personnel.
Yeah, right, so the assessment is 30,000 as of the end of December 31st. So that 30,000 it's gonna cost somewhere around over 100,000 to do the reval completely when we get closer to 2025, so. So that 30,000 isn't going to obviously get you far enough, so that's why we increased it to 45.
Can I ask you, what's the town building maintenance? What does that include? What does that,
So that includes any unanticipated maintenance or maintenance that has to be done. It also includes the move for the PD to this building and the move for the PD back to that building. And any work that has to be done to prepare this building for their move and any work to prepare if they go to the fire department, the work that would have to be prepared for their move there too. So there were some walls that we have to have. We have to also we're moving our server room because the one that it's in isn't big enough for not just our server, but the fiber server, so that's being completed, and all of that money pays for all of those changes.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
If there was for instance, I'm gonna jinx this, but the Old Town Hall, if the boiler went at the Old Town Hall, this fund would also pay for that, the Old Town Hall, so. Although we just
a
replaced
roof
that.
problem on this building or.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
You could, so, we don't spend from it if we don't have to, but if it's there, we can get a repair done.
Right.
But the biggest thing for this year and for this year is going to be the move and the preparation for the PD to
Of our
be,
responders to get ready for the new public safety.
right, so.
Okay.
Want to move on to Article 15?
I was just gonna ask, yeah, but, perfect. I was just gonna say, any other questions or comments on Article 14 from committee members? I don't hear any, so let's move on to proposed Article 15. So this is to change the policy on the police special details. So this money,
Does anyone know
this money-
what's the
this
current
money-
policy?
the current policy is that, I thought that,
It's 50%, correct, Carol?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
50%
50%,
and the other 50 went to what, general?
general
funds?
fund?
correct. I'm just looking for the email. The reason is that they're not covering costs. So Bob is actually recommending that this goes up to 100%. We're just looking for his email.
How is this revolving fund used? Like, what's the purpose of the fund?
It's
It's
used to offset
basically
the cost of
for-
the automobiles, of the vehicles, right?
No, this is basically so the PD goes out and does a detail for Eversource.
Right.
Eversource has got to pay for that detail, but the PD needs to pay the employee in the meantime.
Right.
So that's paid out of that revolving account.
Oh, so we're talking a budgetary type item here.
Yes.
This is making the budget work.
Yeah, am I correct in that? Is that the explanation?
I'm gonna have to clarify fully with Bob. I can tell you that they also pay, when we talked about this, do you remember, Carol? I thought they paid for some equipment as well out of this budget.
Oh, boy, I don't remember that.
See,
This did not.
My understanding.
Yeah, I guess I wanna know
Pays that bill.
The
it
stated
goes into that
purpose of the
fund.
fund.
I can't guarantee this is right, Rob. My understanding is when, we'll use I like your example. So say Eversource needs some support for a special detail. They arrange to have a Bristol police officer and their Bristol police vehicle show up and provide whatever services are
Traffic
needed.
control, yeah.
So if the officer is earning so much money per hour and they work so many hours, that's not what Eversource pays.
Right, 'cause
Eversource
they're-
pays more than that.
they're
So
getting
the
paid
idea,
detail.
the idea is that the officer gets their hourly pay and the town gets something for the use of the vehicle and for whatever administration we do and whatever. So of the money that's left over after paying the officer, right now 50% goes into this revolving fund and 50% goes into general. And my understanding was that what would happen was occasionally the select board would then take the money out of the revolving fund and put it into the police cruiser fund in order to try to defray the cost to the town of the next police vehicle.
So here's.
So to me, whether it goes into general funds or whether it goes into police, the town pays for both of those. This is an accounting type thing.
So when the police officer is on a detail, it's a completely separate rate. They're getting paid a detail rate, not their regular rate, not overtime.
Okay.
Same thing with the fire department. So if the fire department does a football game, the employee gets a detail rate rather than their hourly rate.
Okay, great. And you're
And
saying,
that is paid for by NRHS or
right, and
whoever it may be. Like I know in particular with the fire department, like say the triathlon, or the swim with a mission.
yep,
They swim with a mission pays for those employees to be there with an ambulance. So that money is handled, I'm not sure exactly how it's handled with the fire department. But like, say myself as an employee of the fire department, instead of getting paid my regular rate, which is 22 something an hour, I would get a $45 an hour detail rate.
okay,
And the reason being for that, similar to the PD, it's hard to get people to do details. And they're charging a certain rate, so I don't know if they're getting the full amount charged by the town going to the employee or not. That's something I have to have clarified.
Won't there be a stated purpose of this fund though somewhere?
There will be. I just looked at the trust fund list, it's not on there, the one that Don Milburn shared with me. And also, I do believe also details now require retirement paid out of them, and I think that's required.
Yes.
So I think, so what happens is we were only putting 50% into this fund, but we were actually having to pay out more. And so that's why it's being recommended to move up to 100%, because details have to pay retirement now on certain individuals. And so that was part of the reason to recommend to move it up to 100% to make sure it's covering the amount that's being paid out of
We weren't
it.
covering it though.
We weren't covering, we
It's
weren't,
like you can pay me a detail rate, but I'm a
Right.
part-time employee, so I don't.
I guess I'm also
pay the
interested in
retirement system.
how much we're talking about every year. Like what does this actually look like? Are we talking about
It's not even.
thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars?
Oh,
What are we talking about here as far as money goes?
Is that on,
I'm checking her report. No,
I'm assuming it's in like the $10,000 range, right? We're talking about.
this might be a treasurer account. Let me just see if it's in the town report from,
but it's interesting, so. I'll let you do that. I guess
no, you can keep talking.
the comment I want to make is I don't completely understand that this indicates that for Article 15, which isn't actually spending money, the select board is going to be asked to vote to recommend or not recommend. But Article 18 and 19, which have to do with money, we don't recommend. So I don't completely understand the policy on what we vote on and what we don't. My personal opinion on this is, it seems to me like it's more an accounting thing than anything else, and I basically want to trust Bob and don't want to get into the
It's the same,
nitty-gritty
it's the same amount of
details.
money.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
You're saying is where the money's going. This is different.
So whether the money goes into this account and offsets this, or the money goes into that account and offsets the other thing.
We're buying
in the
things
end,
we need anyways, and-
We're buying things we need, and things that don't get funded get funded from somewhere else.
So it is, it's called
Sure.
the Police Detail Revolving Fund. It is under the treasurer's realm. There, as of the end of 2020, because I don't have this year's updated numbers yet, but as of 2020, there was $7,475 in it. As of the end of 2021, it was $7,483. There was only $8.46 put into it, according to the treasurer's report. And no orders paid, but also that was COVID.
Yeah.
So I think what they've found is that it's not covering, and I don't have the treasurer's report to be able to tell you what went in there this year, but I can get those for you as well. So, because we have a submission from the treasurer for the town report that would have gone to Wendy, so I can get that and I can email that to you tomorrow as well.
Cool.
We have accounts that are the responsibility of the trustees, and we have accounts that are responsibility of the treasurer. So they come from two different reports.
So are there any other questions or any other information that people would like to know about Article 15 to ask for that to be collected and sent to us before we will be asked to vote next Tuesday, or are we ready to move on?
No.
We're not. That's why I asked. Go ahead.
No, because I'm still a little confused. I think what Rob had said something that made me think about something else, that this is on the idea of, like, these are employees, let's say, full-time employees that are getting all of their benefits full-time, but they're going to be doing a special detail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're saying that they then have to pay their retirement during the time that they use as a special unit? I mean, I'm kind of a little confused about
The detail costs that are charged to, for instance, say Eversource has them flagging,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word.
Right.
The detail costs that Eversource are charged for the police department to be on duty include retirement costs now.
Okay.
And all of, so they would end up paying that in, but in the interim, the town has to pay that out. It washes itself out normally, but the reason the change is that it's not washing itself out. The costs are more, and that's why they're recommending to change it so that they do wash. That we're not putting money into the account and overexpending the account,
Right.
paying out to the officers for the detail that they're there.
Okay.
Maybe,
So, excuse me, going back to 2017, this does say the account.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, the accounting of the account is in the yearly treasurer's report that is in the town report, and she is the one who has custody of those funds. Again, is stipulated by the warrant article, so they are not included in the,
Trustees.
no, they're not.
Right.
What are you reading?
Yeah, it's
from?
not part of the general
He's
fund.
gone back
This
to
is
the
an email
27th.
going back to 2017.
Oh,
So,
Does it say in the email when it was created by chance, Rob?
It says in Article 15, established by town meeting in 2015.
Yeah,
Such
so
that-
Perfect.
this is
That's what I
basically
said.
relative to a question about a zero balance in the 2015 and 16 year-to-date for the outside detail line. I can send this to you, it's not gonna be much help, I don't think, but
But you're going back to 2015 to look up the original.
I just looked up the the town meeting minutes for 2015. Because that might help you. And me.
it's basically that, what that is saying is that it doesn't, what's shown on the revolving fund is not part of the general fund, so it's not gonna impact, yeah, it's a little confusing.
well, one of us ought to be able to clearly answer this question if someone asks about it.
Which is
Well, one of us.
One of
since-
you
since-
Actually-
and
No,
one
no,
of us.
no, yeah, no, I was gonna say,
One of
since
each of
the warrant article is controlled by the select board,
One
and
of
they
us.
proposed
Select
this,
board. At least
the person
somebody on the
that says it.
select board is going to end up fielding this.
It's a discussion somebody has to have with
Let's see if we
with
can
Bob,
assign that
and
to
that's
Dawn.
the reality is, at town meeting, Bob will.
Can we
be
just
able to
assign them all
Yeah, yeah.
on? That's all I said that.
What'd you
I said, can we just assign them all to Dawn?
That's what I said, yeah, you didn't hear me, I said that we'll give it to Dawn. Yeah.
It's,
Trying to figure out what past things are historical.
Yeah, I don't know how she goes back in time like that.
Well, she has access to things we don't.
Yeah.
well, I'm on the website. The website has old town reports, so you can look at the minutes. But I was trying
Oh,
to find,
okay.
I have some reports I can get on my computer, but the search feature is not working in the
So,
minutes.
so Sue, did that answer your question, or did you, is it
Sort of.
less murky?
Yeah, it's sort of into the question. I mean, I guess I was trying to look at it in terms of, I was a traveler for actually 3 years. I was a traveler, and what happened was the company I worked for paid my benefits, paid my insurance and my, retirement and the whole thing. And then, let's say I worked at like at Huggins Hospital. That was one of the things I did quite frequently, worked over there. And they then would send pay a high fee to my employer.
Yeah.
I would get a percentage of that, which was actually higher than I was making,
Okay.
as an hourly wage. And so that, I'm assuming, is the same idea as what you're saying. They, being like the town, has to supply of that little extra money that the town, where they don't have that employee in here, they have to give them more money. And that's what we're talking, that's what I'm equating this to.
So I don't know that I think of it differently. My thinking is that the employee basically is working a side job. With everyone's blessing, it's not a problem. They're working a side job, they're doing something for Eversource, but they need to be a licensed, accredited police officer or fire person or EMS person and whatever, so that Eversource comes to the town and says, do you have someone who's qualified to do this work for us? And I don't think this has really anything to do with how much the worker is getting paid. It has to do with what kind of cut. So when the EMS person goes to do this job for Eversource, or the police officer does this job for Eversource, it's understood they're gonna show up with an ambulance, or they're gonna show up with a police cruiser.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea is, okay, since they're using town equipment, it's not unreasonable the town gets a cut of some of this money in order to compensate us for the wear and tear on our equipment. And now, how is that gonna be handled through accounting and bookkeeping and all that type of good stuff?
All right, going back to 2015
I
now.
just.
Go ahead.
So it was an 80-20 split.
80-20, yeah.
So it's 80%
To
goes to
The fund,
the fund, 20% to the general fund.
right,
And it's the governing board that has
which is the
the
select.
right to spend. Yes, it's the select board that decides what it's going to be spent on. It's their purview.
Right,
Yeah.
There's
So-
no stipulated things that they can spend it on, can't spend it
I
on.
The
understand what you're
entire
saying.
fund or the 20%?
The entire fund, what's in the fund, the select board can spend from.
It does say this fund will be for outside details, 80% in the fund and 20% in the general fund. But it does go on to say, obviously, the select board have control of it. The money comes comes in will go to special detail, and then, they had $5,000 to start up the fund
So my
in
understanding,
2015.
my understanding from listening to Don Milbrand and other places, I mean, I know he's on the select board, but he's also our CIP wizard, and he said, well, ideally, if you gotta buy a $54,000 police cruiser every year, hopefully you don't have to actually allocate $54,000 a year, because you're gonna be able to take money out of the revolving fund and offset some of that. But with COVID, the details went down, and that's why we need to ask for the full 54. So what's interesting is that it's not required that the select board spend the money on that, but I will say I'm pretty confident that historically that's what the select board has chosen
Correct.
to spend the money on.
Well, and that some more is coming back to me as I remember. Prior to this fund being established, there was a police details line in the budget that we used to budget, and that money, whatever was left over, would go back to the general fund. But they were often over expending that line because they had to pay out,
Yeah.
and it was coming back in, and whatever you budgeted, they were doing more details than what was being budgeted. So the revolving fund was created in order to help eliminate that issue. And it was the 80-20, but they're finding it's better to put the 100% in there.
That makes sense.
I think
So
this-
sorry about that.
I think-
It's okay, yeah, it makes sense.
I think this all makes sense. I really, I don't want to cut anyone off, but I'd like to move on. I
Yeah.
guess what I would say is, if people really have questions about this and want to get into the nitty-gritty, we need to make sure that we invite Bob to the next meeting to answer these questions.
He'll be at the public hearing anyway.
Okay.
but-
Yeah, like,
So having said that, are we okay to move on?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, Janet? Just want to say hello to you.
keep you engaged.
So let's move on to Article 16. So this is to establish a new capital reserve fund, is what I have read. Is that correct?
Correct. The intent of the highway department, it's a highway department projects capital reserve fund. We have a highway equipment capital reserve fund.
Yep.
But in the discussions, we have a bridge. It's a culvert, but they call it a bridge, that has been red listed with the town for a few years. The intent behind this is to be able to pay for the town's portion of that bridge if we ever get the funding from the state to fix the bridge. So we had started off with, it was going to be a highway department bridge project, but in the discussion with the board, they felt that it should be highway department projects. So if there was culverts and we didn't have enough money to replace a culvert from the budget, that maybe there was a washout that took out culverts on a road and they had to be fixed, then this money could pay for that repair. The reason that we're establishing it with the $50,000, coming from the unassigned fund balance, was to just get the fund established, and try not to hit the tax rate at this time. So Paul and I had to talk about the unexpended fund balance earlier.
We know Paul's problem.
Yes. He
Thank
shared it with me.
Yeah.
So,
So I can tell you right now, the bridge, we have an estimated cost to fix this bridge, it's $500,000. Obviously, that's not something we want to spend, but if 20% of that cost, obviously, whenever we get through the state project, that's where we're trying to get it through, is the state bridge program, which is an 80-20 split. So if we start putting some money into this fund, and we do get picked, then we have the money available to be able to repair that, is what we're proposing to do, so.
okay. Carol, go ahead.
Sort of unrelated, so we use the word unexpended, and the word in here is unassigned, and the other word I've heard is unreserved fund balance. Are they all one and the same? Yes.
I believe
I
so.
understand they are.
This is what came from the Department of Revenue, but I'm waiting for their confirmation
Get it.
on this wording. I took it from another article that
Okay.
we had done this with, in the past. They haven't approved the exact wording, but the intent is to take it from the unexpended, unassigned fund balance so that it doesn't
I
affect
just
the
want to make
tax
sure I
rate.
was understanding it properly. Thank you.
Any other members have a question, comment, or a query? I guess a question and a query is the same thing. I mean,
I guess the problem I have with this one in particular is it doesn't have the same kind of future plan as the other funds do. Where there's some plan that over the next 10 years, this is how the fund is going to be spent. We don't have that in this case, so I feel like it's a bit just different than the other funds. That's kind of the only
Can I ask a
reserve about it.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Go ahead.
Are you saying that if it was specific to a bridge repair, because we don't know when we're gonna get funded on a bridge, but at least if we said specifically it was a bridge repair and not open-ended for anything else, would that be,
I'm just saying it's just different.
okay,
I'm not saying if it's good or bad either way. I'm just saying it's certainly different
It's
than
kind of-
the other funds.
It's kind of like the very first cut on a CIP on this. Does that make sense? It's like we've never had it, so we're creating it. It is in essence the same thing.
But we just essentially
We know-
don't have that CIP planning in place. But
We
you said the idea would be that it would be. We would start that planning.
I think it's a good idea. Put it
Because
on there.
I bet we know essentially this bridge and then this bridge is probably next. We probably do have at least order
Yeah,
of what we consider to be problems.
we have,
that's the
so,
state, unfortunately.
we have one bridge, that is a problem, all the
Yeah.
rest are not, that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But I think the thought by the select board member that recommended this change was, I'm going off tangent for a second. Hazard mitigation, we talked about having a culvert replacement plan in place because obviously if you don't do the maintenance, your hazard mitigation increases, the problems increase. So the thought was, I think with the select board member was to be able to start developing those things in addition to the bridge repair and be able to make those plans because you're not gonna be able to budget in your budget for everything that needs to be done over the years. Or it could be a road washout and you're not gonna have it in your budget potentially to fix that. So that's what the thought was, I think, behind that select board member. Is that correct, Carol, when we had that conversation?
It sounds correct.
So,
We had
But I
started
think-
this
Charlie
specific to
makes
a
a
bridge.
good
So when we did this, we started this reserve specific for the bridge.
Yeah,
And the
Yeah.
select board member asked to change this.
to make it wider.
Yes.
So a clarifying question for me, just to be clear. So this would establish and seed a new capital reserve fund. So then it's a capital fund. So then does it become part of the capital planning that's going on for all our other capital funds, would you expect? That the CIP committee would then spend time talking about it and,
Because I don't believe it's in there now, so yes, it would.
well, it's not in there now because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
right, and I think it should. I don't remember if we talked about that, but it makes perfect sense.
And we couldn't, and when we started talking about this, the CIP plan was already finalized, so you can't make those changes, but I do believe they are aware of this because, the select board member is a CIP member, so.
I kind of would have assumed that, yes.
Yes, so I do believe that.
Or he's a
this is-
select board member for a little bit longer.
Yes. So I do, he is the one who actually made the recommendation to change the wording on this, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
On the culverts, it says replacement and repair. Now, I've always called, because I just need to understand this, so at the bottom of we live at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
So the culvert gets everything in it from the top of the hill, all slides down, all bad weather, all sand from the road work, everything like that. We've cleaned our own
Correct.
for years. So when you're talking about maintaining it and replacing it, whatever it is, what does that entail?
Are you talking about the culvert that crosses your driveway?
Well, it's both sides of our driveway. So when the road comes down and the dirt, it travels across everybody's and comes
Yeah,
down,
so
we're the bottom of the
this-
hill.
This is a cross pipe that crosses under the road that they're talking about.
Well, it does, it goes underneath, well, underneath,
So the one that's in your driveway
Yeah.
is the homeowner's responsibility.
yeah, we do, we can.
Right.
Okay,
But
so,
so this would be a cross pipe that crosses the road.
Okay.
So like, for instance, I know when they paved Hall Road this year, they replaced all the cross pipes all the way up Hall Road.
They didn't replace them all.
They didn't replace, well, any that were in need of
The
replacement.
husband one rain from their house.
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm
So
asking,
like
so,
the newer, I mean, over the past 25, 30 years, they were replacing them with a corrugated plastic rather than a galvanized steel, because the galvanized steel rots out over time.
right,
And actually, I know the state and the town both had, I don't know if they still do, but they used to have like the cement culverts, which over time erode away and
Right.
broke down. And
right.
so,
Well, so we do, but like I said, on the other side of our road, which it's probably the corner of the other person's property, but it's at the very end on the road. So that had to be filled in, but it's coming apart already, it's falling apart. So the town is responsible for that, are they not? So is that what you're talking about, that type of repair is what I'm asking? That's what I was leading to.
I do believe so. I
Yeah.
can't, without seeing the actual culvert and if it's
Yeah.
on your property.
it's kind of complicated.
But I would say that's for repair,
And also
not the
leave-
maintenance stuff.
No, not the maintenance, but they would be responsible for the repair.
They
of
would
that
be
culvert.
responsible for the repair, replacement.
Yeah.
If the road was is dug up, usually that's when they're checking the pipes to see if they need to be replaced or
Yeah.
not, so.
Yeah.
I think Carol wanted to say something.
Would you prefer it if it said culvert replacement or repair? You replace a culvert and maybe 10 years down the road, you have to fix something around it, that would be and repair.
Yeah,
Well,
So it may not, it's not happening at the same time necessarily.
It says culvert replacement and repair.
what does say?
Well, I'm
Carol wants to say or,
I'm asking if
so-
she doesn't like the wording of that.
But
Yeah, those probably should be or in both of those.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that.
Bridge replacement or repair.
Yeah.
Culvert replace.
Yeah.
Replacement
Whatever
or
it means
repair.
at the time, yeah.
Both of those words should probably be or.
Because they don't happen.
Yeah, they're
at the
probably
same
not gonna
time.
happen together.
Yeah.
Correct.
And if it's a project's capital reserve, then it could be repair as opposed to replacement.
Right, right.
How's that sound?
So,
That's a minor change. I think I can change that without having to go back to the department of revenue.
Thank you.
so I will say, I don't want to, I would discourage us from getting into a discussion on whether or not this is a good article and whether or not we should have a capital project reserve fund created, because that's controlled and decided by the select board, and they've obviously already made that decision. So what we are gonna have the opportunity to do is to vote as a committee on what our committee recommends the public do with this. And we will also have an opportunity as individual citizens of the town, a town meeting, to cast our own individual votes. So if you have questions or thoughts about getting those resolved, I think that makes sense, but without going to a select board meeting and trying to change a bunch of select board people's minds, because there's nothing we can, we're
No,
not.
we're pretty solid on this, because
Yeah.
this is gonna have to be done. And as soon as DOT says, oh, we've got the money, we have to come up with our piece.
I understand.
Basically.
I understand what you're
Simple,
saying, I'm
simple
also,
enough.
That's a good thing to add. I would say what he said is.
I
Makes
think
a lot of
that makes
sense.
perfect sense. The problem that I'm having, just to share with everyone, is, I mean, I don't go to I don't even go to many of the select board meetings, but I have been to a couple. And I was at a meeting where this kind of came up, and what I heard Mark Buckland, our road department chief, say was, this is on a road that would lead him to think that it will never rank very high on the state's priority list. That if the bridge failed completely and the road.
We could close that road and.
You could close that
That section of the
road
road
and,
would
and
not.
you wouldn't have a huge problem with people driving around to the other end and going around. That the chance of the state ever putting this high enough on the priority list that it got funded for a state contribution is not,
Excellent.
if you're a betting person, you would bet against this. So we can save up $100,000, but the thought that we're going to get 400 from the state is not something to waste a lot of time worrying about.
They have changed also their process. So before you used to submit and try and get picked. Now they take their list and they knock off the first 16. But they do take a lot of everything into consideration, so they don't just take in consideration, they take population, they take how many people use the road, they take how poor of a condition it's in, so they do take a lot of that into consideration. And could we not get picked for 10 years, potentially?
Yeah, because I think they said they may knock off the top 16,
And then
but
they
it doesn't mean
add,
everybody down here doesn't get to do this. They can put 16
Yeah.
above you if they come in.
If the plan
They
is
can
that.
still
the
add
needs-
above you.
I'm not saying I'm against this, I'm not gonna vote, definitely gonna vote against it. If it makes sense to have $100,000 saved up and this is the first step towards that, I can see that has some value, so.
Yeah.
I just personally don't have more questions, so I don't wanna cut anyone off, but I wanna move on. unless- Okay, so I think that's it for Article 16, unless somebody speaks up quickly, we'll move on to Article 17. This is an interesting one.
Yes.
I hadn't seen it until I got emailed this week, so.
this is an article that you will see on the warrant for the next 5 years. Well, there were capital projects that were intermingled with the general fund and the new capital projects fund. And unfortunately, this is prior to most any of us on staff, but it was due to improper accounting of the project. So this has to pay back. So it has to pay back the capital projects fund, the water capital project fund, and the sewer capital project fund. It isn't that none of this money wasn't appropriated, it was the way it was booked out of the general fund projects. It says, let's see, if the money was supposed to be put back into 3 separate capital project funds, it will be spread out over 5 years in equal amounts, will require 1 warrant article every year. Any or, according to this, it says any or all of these could be voted down. However, it is money that is technically owed back to these funds. So in order to fix the improper accounting for it, this will have to be done every 5 years.
Who's
So-
I mean,
saying
once
we
every
have to
5
do
years.
this?
Sorry?
Who's saying we have to do this?
We will put this is our attorney. We
Our
will-
attorney, okay.
We will put this on the warrant until we're able to pay back the
So,
funds,
so just to clarify, the town did some project or multiple projects, and the cost of those projects were charged to these 3 funds, and it's now been
No.
determined that it shouldn't have been, so the money
No.
needs to be restored.
Correct, yeah. So the money needs to be restored back over the next 5 years. It's more than this money, obviously, it's 5 times 61,000.
Right, this is 20%, this
so-
is 1/5.
Um,
So, is there any reason,
But this is essentially what would be fair to essentially the people that pay into the water and sewer system versus the general resident of Bristol. Is essentially.
I hear what you're saying, the question.
So they don't have to bear that
The
cost
que-
that they
the-
shouldn't
The
have.
question I was gonna go is that I'm a little surprised that the list of the projects that were misallocated aren't mentioned at all. Is there a reason, and are we trying to keep that, is the select board willing to share that with the public? If I stand up at a public meeting and ask, is that something that would be shared?
It's gotta be public information, it's what I'm.
the email here this stems from Nick and the attorney, the sewer preliminary design, water and plant compliance. Well, actually, those are the funds we're paying back. It happened 10+ years before Nick, so this is.
Oh, it happened.
Yeah, this is,
So we're talking
Before
about
Nick.
probably somewhere around early 2000s. Then.
Yeah.
So the prevailing theory is that water funds, sewer funds, and general funds were commingled at one time, and that what might have happened is that there was a grant for a water and sewer project, and we were supposed to be reimbursed by the state, but no one made sure we were reimbursed. So a deficit was created, and the general fund owes the water and sewer project funds.
Okay.
So this money is to pay those back because there wasn't a follow through 10+ years ago
Gotcha.
these
Yeah, well, I
projects.
You
understand.
did good, you can explain that, that's great.
Yeah, well, that does explain a lot though, by doing that's kind of.
Doesn't stop the fact that Dawn's gonna be the one talking to me.
Yeah, we're gonna say Dawn. I'm gonna take this off the select board agenda and we're just gonna say Dawn's doing them all.
And then he leaves in March.
Okay. So I hear, any,
So again, you will see this for the next, so this year and the next 4 years.
and potentially longer, it'll go on until we get 5 approvals, is what
Oh,
I'm
right,
hearing.
right. So if it is voted down, it will go on until we're able to pay it back. You are correct.
What happens,
Yes.
what happens if we don't? I don't think we've had that conversation.
It's just-
I'd have to read
Since it
more
was
of that
20 years
during
ago.
the
It becomes, Carol, it becomes like Article 12, it's something that just shows up every year.
I guess so here's the thing, I guess if it's voted down one year, you could potentially increase the amount the next year and try and get it paid back, but,
If it hasn't been paid back
Who's-
for 20 years now, it's,
Who's going to make an issue if we don't pay it back? The auditors eventually someday?
I think that this may be in the auditor's report now.
Okay, oh, okay. Thank you.
okay. Any other comments or questions on Article 17? Okay, we'll move on, Article 18.
Do we have, is it about 50% of people in this town do you get water and sewer? Is it about 50%? Is it a 50-50?
I don't think it's 50%.
It's not even 50%?
No, I think that might be a little high.
Well, I mean, the downtown residents, there's more density, I don't know.
Let's check.
Well, also, are they still working on
I don't think half the
the
town gets
replacement of,
But I don't know.
that they were working on before that,
The Central Street Pump.
Yeah.
Yes, so that should be starting in the spring.
okay.
And then the select board, it voted to move forward with the Lake Street,
Well, 4 of them did.
the Lake Street
One of
extension.
them did.
Well, majority voted to move forward with the Lake Street extension. And which, if pending the EDA funding, we've submitted a letter asking for an extension and approval for, reappropriation to finish the Lake Street. The original amount of money that they granted us was for the sewer to the lake project. There was a request put in prior to myself to reappropriate the money for just the Lake Street extension, which would put it up to approximately Riverdale.
Yeah.
And the EDA hasn't ruled on that yet, so the board voted to move forward with that project if the EDA funding is reappropriated. So we're waiting for a final answer on that, so.
Fund with sewer.
Good.
I thought you were gonna ask if 50% of the town would qualify for veterans.
That's what I thought you was
No,
gonna say.
I don't.
I know, okay, I wasn't prepared for water. I can ask Jeff that though, but I 50% seems high because I think the Lake District is your biggest portion of property.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking
Okay.
50% may be a little high, but I don't know. Lake District is 50% of your property in the town, so.
Right, that's what I said.
Yeah. So.
And there were 4 districts, is that correct?
No, there are
More.
7.
Oh, really? Oh.
6 or
Oh, so
7.
we're getting that many, okay.
Village commercial, village residential, rural, industrial, corridor commercial, Lake District. Did I say rural?
No.
So 7.
Okay.
Then there's some overlay districts as well, but
Like historical district.
historical, PEMI overlay,
Yep.
floodplain.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's about less than 50%.
I think it's less than 50%, but I can always confirm that number with Jeff. Because your lake district, like I said, is 50% of your town, so approximately. So
So,
Article 18.
yeah, so is 8, does it make sense? 18 and 19 both talk about veterans. Should we leave them separate or should we combine them or do we? Let's just do 18, is that, unless?
I have to do them separate.
Okay, do 18 then.
So, well, we can combine them, but on the, I meant that on the warrant, they have to be listed
I meant for
separate.
discussion, right? I didn't mean for,
They changed, so a law changed, for property tax credits for veterans. And with the law change, the legislature passed, Governor Sununu signed it into law in 2022. With the law change, there were two portions of our tax credit that in order for us to continue, we had to readopt.
Okay,
So we didn't make a change at this point. This is currently what we offer, which the optional veterans tax credit is your standard veterans tax credit, which the town offers a $500 tax credit.
It could be up to $750.
It could be up to $750. We haven't recommended to change it, we just want, yet, we're gonna come back to the town next year when we relook at all of the exemptions and credits, potentially. The Article 19 is the all veterans tax credit, which is in the one we just adopted a few years ago. And that one is the same amount of 500. That wording comes straight from the Department of Revenue for both of those, so.
So what, I'm not sure what that means, I'm kind of reading this here, so my husband gets that, he's a veteran, so we get that for our property.
So there's a standard veterans tax credit, which means that you served during a qualifying conflict.
Okay,
You served 90 days active duty, you were honorably discharged. So that's the standard. The all veterans, you have to have served 90 days active duty and be honorably discharged. There are some people that have served outside of the state statute has specific deadlines on qualifying conflicts, and there are some people that served in conflicts but not a qualifying conflict. And the town, so this statute was adopted and the town had presented it in a town meeting and it was passed. So they get the same $500 credit.
right.
Yeah.
But the thing that I didn't pick up on when I read this is that this is not granting a new veterans benefit. This is reauthorizing
Just
the
readopting.
existing
Yeah.
veterans benefit we
Something
have
that we already
now.
do.
yeah, yeah.
And I do remember when we approved, I was at the meeting when we approved the all veterans, so I remember that discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just to re-adopt what's already in place because of the law change.
But if we don't re-adopt, then the credits go
Then-
away.
Then everybody who's getting
And we'll
a
have a lot of pissed
standard
off veterans.
or all veterans would lose their credit
Yep.
effective next year.
Yep.
So,
Because I heard from a veteran about this a couple days ago, asking if we were gonna do that.
yeah.
You said standard veterans credit, does that mean the Article
That-
18 optional?
Yeah, they call it
Okay.
optional
Okay.
in the statute. We
making sure.
call it standard, but
On the same page, yeah.
yeah.
So not all veterans we have in town are eligible for this.
Well,
If 18 and 19 pass, all, like she said, that were honorably discharged and served for more than 90 days would be.
active duty.
Active duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under the all veterans, so currently they are, so we already have all veterans. As of right now, we have both of these. So the difference between the two is the all veterans allows you to be 90 days active duty and honorably discharged. You don't have to have served.
So I guess what
Article
I'm,
19 trumps Article 18.
No,
so what I'm saying is, so somebody that served in say 1996 to 1999 where there was no conflicts or anything, well,
actually,
There
that's
was,
a bad
possibly,
one.
yeah, yeah.
It's still open-ended on the Gulf, or one of them still open-ended.
yeah.
So just, we'll pretend though they're not.
Pretend there wasn't, they served at a time where there were no open conflicts.
Right.
They're still eligible.
With the all
With
veterans,
all
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so right now they are. If these are not readopted, they won't be.
But the point being, any town could say, the optional veterans credit for those who may have served during a conflict could be $750. The all veterans credit for those that didn't might be $250. The
Sure.
town could make that choice.
The town can make that choice.
In
So
our case,
We have,
it's all the same.
we made the choice already to make them the same at 500. The difference too, also just so, anybody who is considered totally and permanently disabled, if you serve if you qualify under an all veterans, you can't get a total and permanent disability, which is an additional $1,700 credit. Only people who have served in an armed conflict, as written by statute, can get the total and permanent credit.
So they can get one or the other.
No, they get both.
Oh, they do
So
get
it's total of $2,200 for anybody who's total. And it's very, very specific. It's total and permanent disability, 100%, and it has to say that on their paperwork, or we can't qualify them, so.
So we're talking a person that's,
But these are just the basics. It doesn't affect the total and permanent. That still goes forward. It's just these two that have to be readopted.
Yeah.
I
But
got
again,
you.
for those that asked the same questions we just did,
Yep.
we've made the decision to keep them the same. We're
Well,
not giving those that
we
served in a
proposed-
conflict
Correct.
a higher credit. We're giving everybody, all veterans, essentially we're giving all veterans the same.
Correct.
But we're calling it by, they are categorized differently.
Right, but
Correct.
same, yeah.
I don't,
Yes?
I would also, I found this helpful, I understand them better than I did when this meeting started, but I also want to point out that I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on these because we are not being asked to vote on our recommendation. This is really completely the select board.
This came straight from the Department of Revenue. I will double check before your public hearing just to make sure, but
Thank you.
but this came from the Department of Revenue. So I will double check, and that way you'll know by your public hearing for sure.
But I think everything else we're being asked to recommend, it's only 18 and 19 that I noticed that we're not being asked to vote on our recommendation. So, okay, any other, anyone else want to say anything on either Article 18 or Article 19, question or comment?
No.
Christina, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's right. I have a technical information release that I will put out with these when I set up that town meeting page, which should be hopefully tomorrow.
Okay,
And make sure that that's in there so people understand what we're doing as well. And then again, I will double check if a recommendation.
if we should vote next week on 18 and 19 in addition to all the other ones, okay.
Yep. One more article, you want to talk about the potential article?
Did we speak
So-
of that in public or non-public on the TV last week?
We didn't do TV last week. We spoke about it in public.
Okay, so I can talk about it.
So,
Let me just check the minutes.
I was
but
just-
believe we spoke about it in public.
So Carol, my understanding is that in addition to this draft 3, there's potentially, potentially there's more, but there's 2 things that we know are potential. One is from the select board potentially to discuss funding for the public safety building.
It was public.
And we don't have any details yet, but after Thursday, those details will be available and everyone
The
will share.
details will be, we're talking about.
And we've also heard a rumor that there might be a petition article, and we kind of think we know what that might be, but there's nothing official with that yet.
I was gonna, have you seen that?
No, and,
Not submitted yet.
he's out of state right now, but they have till the 7th at 4, I think it's 4 or 5 o'clock. But they have to submit the petition warrant article, which is right before your meeting.
The
Residential solar.
Yeah.
exemption. Do we have to vote on that? The budget committee and the select board? No, that's
No.
just the
When we-
citizens.
You know, the select board can, we've been told that the budget committee can't.
We asked that I asked that question about whether, if the potential petition article that
Yeah.
we've heard about comes through, with the budget committee being asked for recommendation. And Christina checked with the lawyer and came back and told us, no, it'll just be the select board voting to recommend, the budget committee won't. You had said you thought that was how it would work out, and you were right.
And Rob was correct.
So.
what?
Let's read that into the minutes.
We're talking about taking a substantial amount out of the unreserved fund balance to try to get some of the things back on the public safety building. That means it's gonna cost us more than it was, but without going out to.
How much is in the unreserved fund balance?
5-ish.
So,
Did
I
I,
think you
it's,
said 450 or
so
550.
as of the end of December, it's about, as of the end of December, without knowing what we're putting back yet from 2022, the 2022 hasn't been closed yet. We're anticipating to be able to close it before the public hearing, so you have all those numbers correctly. But as of December 31st, it was about just over 550,000, right around there.
What's the DRA recommended level, like 300?
It's required to be a certain percentage. I can tell you what it
That's where it
was.
goes with percentage.
Yeah, I can tell you what it was for the tax rate setting, I just have to get there. So I asked Bob for a guess on what he thinks that we might put back from 2022, and he thinks the rate, and he thinks it may be right around 150,000, so.
But if, just to clarify, if the select board adds another article to the warrant to appropriate additional money for the public safety building, that will be something this committee will vote on a
Correct.
recommendation.
Correct.
Okay.
But not if the select board decides to just pull from the unreserved fund balance.
You don't vote on that?
Can't they just do that? Can't you just pull from the unassigned fund
If
balance?
they're,
Oh, no.
no, they're asking
Oh, okay.
they're not pulling the money, they're putting it on the warrant and asking the
Got it.
voters to
Yeah.
approve.
Yeah.
Correct.
I understand.
So no, they can't pull from the unassigned fund balance.
So you're
They
just
have to
like-
do a warrant article.
Just like the other
Just
thing.
like Article 16.
Correct.
Got it.
They only can pull from the unassigned fund balance if there's an emergency, and they would have to go to the Department of Revenue to get permission to do that.
Got it.
They can't just pull from that fund.
Okay.
That's why you see it on the warrant articles, because it has to be approved by the
Okay.
voters too.
I know you can't do anything on any petition. I guess what I would say is, we won't know for sure until the window closes. But I will ask you that if someone doesn't wait, if someone submits a petition warrant article without waiting for the last moment,
Yep.
they do it tomorrow or the next day, instead of waiting for next Tuesday, please let us know. Same thing, if Thursday, the select board adds an article, don't wait till Tuesday to let us know.
Yeah.
Send an email and let us know so we can think about it over the weekend and show up Tuesday a little more prepared for what's happening.
Oh, we will certainly do that.
Thank
They
you.
submit them to Rayma, and I've been checking with her daily to see if anything's been submitted, so.
Carol, where are we at? So I know we were looking at a figure of roughly $800,000 that came in over.
Six.
So
Six, yeah,
$581,000 that, and the board, so $581,000 and change,
Yeah.
that we've cut out of the building.
Did we,
Now, does that, to meet, so does that number to meet
To meet the budget.
To
the
bring
initial, what was initially?
the 4.8 allocation.
What are you looking for, Carol?
I was looking for the chief's list of
I have it.
the items that were,
Can I ask you something? You pulled out of the building, what does that mean? I'm like, good.
There was
Plans.
They reduced the scope of the, so that they,
Is this
last,
because they went up in price?
yes.
The
Correct.
people who want to build this for us?
Well, it went out to bid. The bids came higher than they thought they were.
Exactly. Now, I also thought I read that you were going for more bids, or there was a question of maybe trying to get more bids in.
They went,
Before.
so the fire chief and the police chief did go down and review all the bid documents. In their review, there was, what they felt is that there wasn't any wiggle room. It wasn't, and there was maybe, I think they said there was maybe, 3 or 4 bids that if we put them back out, the most we would gain is maybe $60,000.
they were.
In
they
their
were-
opinion of what they saw.
Yeah, they were pretty confident that it was well done. And I think they said that they did talk to some of the locals also. So they recommended
they
to us,
did,
they
yes.
recommended with us to move ahead with it as is. And I've been talking to people down in the legislature, because there's a lot of selectmen at the legislature, and we talk about this stuff. And this is what it is everywhere. Every project that every town is doing is coming in way over what they thought it was gonna a year ago. So it came in $600,000 more. We've only got 4.8 to spend. We can only spend 4.8, so you have to take stuff off to get to 4.8. That's what we're
Right,
doing.
right.
Taking the back parking lot out, taking out the,
I-
but we haven't looked at that list, right?
I have
think
the
we're
list.
Taking out, that we suggested to take it, is that relevant to the conversation next week for you? If we're gonna say, you don't have to approve,
Sure, it's relevant, because the taxpayers are gonna ask that
well,
question.
no, I mean for the budget committee, but yes,
So-
for everybody.
So if,
So what we're trying to do is say,
if you select board, if you as a member of the, if the select board as a group
Yep.
adds an article to the warrant,
Yep,
asking for an additional allocation for more money to build, to compensate. So instead of cutting things out of the building, we'll just come up with some more money and pay for it. I think we would wanna know what's getting put, what are we gonna avoid taking out of the building?
yeah, so, the point is, let's get it,
Until you guys meet Thursday, I don't think you can give us that information.
we're pretty close.
All right.
So,
But we don't do-
from last week's work session, it was discussed
I
that,
was looking for my sheet. We'd really like to,
radiant heating and insulation at minimum was one of the things that they wanted to look at putting back in. And that's a total of $107,000.
in the back.
Insulation is the slab insulation, which is what they prepare for the radiant heating.
Okay.
So that would be $107,000. So that was one of the things, and then the parking lot was the other, but that's $202,000. We're looking into ARPA funds. It's not looking so good that the ARPA funds can be used for any portion of the project. But we are still trying to close the loop on that.
So what we're gonna do is say, and we didn't come up with a number, say, how close can we get to the building the people said they wanted? We can't do it with the 4.8 million, so either we say, we only spent 4.8 million and we have to take $600,000 of stuff out of this building. The back parking lot. If the back parking lot comes out, there will be basically no extra parking spaces, like 4 or 5 extra parking spaces.
Which would be a waste. I mean,
Which is a waste, because now you can't use the big room for meetings and whatever. So,
And also, you want to lock in that price too. So what's happening, what will happen there? How long is this quote from them? If you decide to go forward with this, will they help?
we told
We're
them,
Go any
going-
higher.
we told them to go ahead. and
We're
get
trying to
contracts.
finalize the contract right now.
So it won't go any higher after that. Usually when you take a bid, if there's no, it doesn't go anywhere, that's your bid. That's
What I
what
don't
they work
understand is
on.
why did it take 10 months to realize that we
Yes.
were $800,000 over budget?
Exactly, yeah, there was a lot of, this is strange.
I'm gonna be mean and just suggest you all go to the select board meeting Thursday night, because we're not gonna solve this in this meeting tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, I wasn't gonna say anything because I think that you would have found, even if we went with the project, the prices changed so much. They didn't put things out to bid. Once they put things out to bid, that's when the prices had changed drastically.
I mean,
I guess it just,
we had a 3 or 4 month delay.
It was
That
put on
unexpected
hold.
because of the bonding issue,
Yeah.
really.
right.
From what everybody's saying, that wouldn't have made any difference. with
It actually
pricing.
probably saved it some. We probably would have been higher.
But yeah, I know there was just in the industry in general,
Yeah.
there was a huge jump basically in April,
Yeah,
which is as soon as gas prices started going up, that's when all the fuel surcharges started dropping.
right. So it's very disappointing, to put it bluntly. Yeah, for sure. We're trying to, and that was my suggestion, what can we do to try to get the building to where people want it? Because I asked, do we go back to the voters and say, do you not want this now?
And I wouldn't,
I know, nobody on the camera wants to hear that, but,
no.
it's not the building you said you
But
want.
cutting necessary costs is not a good answer either, because you're gonna wanna go back later, and they'll be less apt to approve something like that later on down the road, because the prices go even higher.
Right.
So you might as well put one, this is why it's needed, what do you need this?
Right.
Have everything laid out for people to
Right.
give those answers, like you said, they're gonna ask.
Right, and sorry, Paul, I know we're trying to,
Yeah.
but the other conversation was, the last thing I'll say, you can't put radiant floor in heating later because your concrete's poor.
No, yeah.
You can put a parking lot in later.
Yes.
So
It may
they
cost you more, but it
What
is
is the
something
cost of the
you.
radiant heating, just out of curiosity?
Set up to
107,000.
Plus the insulation.
No,
That includes
that's
that.
the total, it's 80 plus,
Um,
80 something plus the insulation.
Can I answer your question, the overlay, it's between 5% and 17%, but, one of the things, I can't give you an exact number of what that was, because when they count not overlay, the retention, when they count not just unexpended funds, they count other things into that number, so.
Yep.
but it's between, we're supposed to keep between 5% is minimum, 17% is maximum.
Yep.
Of our budget.
So they call it the, the fund balance retention guidelines. So 5% retention minimum recommended, and that was, this number may not be accurate because I don't have the final tax rate information here, but this was 692,000. That was the minimum at the time. So that number may be just adjusted slightly depending on where the tax rate ended up.
I can't find my sheet, Christina has it.
I have it here, but I
The
keep going from one
the chief
report
had
to
it,
another.
it's
I
laid out.
just lost it.
The potential cost of different things.
Here, I can get back to that now that I've answered Rob's question. Projects. Public safety. Okay, we're getting there. So the good thing about, not the good thing, but at least they've given us deadlines for putting things back in. So for instance, if we came up with a grant that would pay for something, we could do change orders to put this back in. Or if we found ARPA money, there's something the ARPA money might pay for, we could put change orders to put that back in. The biggest ones, again, are the radiant heating and apparatus bay was $80,000. The underslab insulation, which is for the radiant heating, was an additional $27,000.
Here it is.
Thank you.
The upper parking lot was $201,250. And the next biggest one after that was 1.5-inch course of asphalt not installed, that's $46,000. And then apparatus bay bump out was $46,000.
I do remember that discussion, yeah, okay.
So, and there's other things like 36,000 change brick veneer to vinyl siding.
Which is what some people ask.
Want it anyways.
Right. And even to remove mezzanine is $6,000, so it totals up to $581,679. So,
Okay.
and we're working with them right now to try to finalize the contract. There's some back and forth right now, so.
Bullet resistant.
Okay, so
That's coming out, so.
just to summarize, I think I'm gonna try to summarize just to wrap up the warrant article preview. So we've gone through all the warrant articles, we haven't really talked about how we would vote to recommend them, but I don't think we need to do that. And things will change between now and Tuesday, and as people get information as things change, we're not gonna wait for Tuesday, we'll get that distributed out to the committee members and deal with that. So, if there's any comment on the warrant, speak up now, otherwise we will move to the next item, which is discussing the fiscal year 2023 revenues. Okay, we'll move on to revenues. So this is, I think, the way that I think about this is that one of the things we're required to do at next week's meeting is to vote to approve the revenue report,
The proposed.
the proposed
Yeah,
revenue
so there'll be a
report.
2023 line out here.
So what we're doing,
Next week.
so what we're doing today
There it
is to,
It's not on your printout though.
so what
Oh,
we,
got cut off.
yeah, that cut off.
I'll go around the computer.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what we're doing today now is just discussing this revenue report in anticipation of voting on it next week, the way we just discussed the warrant article, in anticipation of voting on it next week.
So, Shannon may not have known, when Bob set some of these formats in here, they automatically set to print. And if you didn't change that, it didn't add the 2023 in.
Yep.
So that's missing unfortunately on your printed copies. Do they have it on their desktop?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have all
yeah.
on their computers and
Yep.
So if
So-
emails.
So what I think the important thing is
Yeah.
looking at the grand totals. So for 2022, Our grand total was $3,909,000, and we essentially budgeted $2,985,000. So essentially, like a 900 or almost $1 million difference between budgeted and actual amount. So they have increased essentially what we essentially predict or what we budget to $3,178,754. So that's an increase of about $200,000 on what we're estimating. So still conservative like we usually are, but definitely recognizing the trend that we're seeing in higher than ever revenues.
And the select
Right,
board did vote to approve these at their, not last week, but the week before. So these are all approved for you to consider, so.
So I'll make the comment that I want to say this, and then I want you to tell me whether you think I'm correct or if I've got a misunderstanding. What I've heard in the past is these are all revenue expectations and budget numbers. But in the real scheme of things, it doesn't have any real effect, because at a later date, we'll have actual revenue numbers, and the select board will use those updated numbers to compare revenue versus expenses and use that information to set the tax rate. So legally, we have to approve this, but it doesn't really
Right.
cause any effect.
I would say it informs the select board on possible revenues.
This does actually, so this does get submitted to the Department of Revenue. It's part of the
Which is why
package
we
you
have to
have to
approve it.
submit after town meeting. However, it does get adjusted.
It doesn't lock us into anything. The
doesn't-
select board later is
it's
gonna
not
use
specifically.
newer,
Yeah.
more updated information to
Correct.
set the tax rate.
Correct.
Why shouldn't they? Yeah.
When when Bob goes through, it sets the MS4, I think it's called,
Yeah.
which is the revenue report that he sets with the tax rate. It's going to set the revised revenues at that time, so if it's anticipated that we're gonna be a little higher, then Bob's gonna move that number up to help with the tax rate.
And so the reason I said that is, I know we have to vote on this, I know we have to spend some time talking about it, I know we have to feel comfortable with it. I just want to make sure that I understand, and if I'm correct, that other people understand, that this is not like gonna lock these numbers in ink where they can't change, and we're committing the town to some sort of thing. If Rama collects a ton more money, it's gonna show up in the books.
Correct.
Yeah, I would say this seems reasonable. Let's move on.
Yeah, good, that's what I was trying to say. That's why I love you, Charlie.
Seems fun.
So, does
So we'll
anyone
make sure-
have a question? Again, I don't want to rush, I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to say what they want to say, but
We'll make sure that the column is fixed on the printed copies. That's not Shannon's fault. It was all set by ahead, but we'll make sure we fix that.
Gotcha.
Yes.
okay.
Sounds good.
Any more comments on
It's
revenues?
great to see you.
Well, just a quick thing,
Go ahead.
the 3,909, that's what already has been in?
Correct.
That's what we
That's
took
what
in
it
this
says.
year.
That's what we took in this year.
That's the
Yeah.
current, as of
And that's
December
that
31st. Now, the
is
books
the
aren't
highest-
completely-
It's the highest ever.
No, those
It is
are
the
not.
highest.
Oh, they are closing?
So revenues.
At the end of the year, revenues
At the
close.
end of the
Okay,
year.
okay.
So anything that's received after that would go in on
To
the
this year.
deposit.
Because
for this year.
the previous year was the highest year also.
Yeah, I saw that, it was, yeah.
The
yeah.
3,121,000. So yeah, this is by far the highest revenue year ever.
Okay,
By the time was out.
Yeah,
keep up the good work.
that's
Ted.
good, yeah.
I mean, the motor vehicles is huge.
Yeah, people buying expensive cars. Essentially.
And also the influx, you figure, there's been a lot of people that have moved into Bristol.
Oh, so we got more people registering.
Buildings, yep,
Yeah.
more people building, I mean.
Yeah.
So
even-
I thought we said there was less than,
44%
just a little less than
increase in
100, or is there more than 100 people that have
I knew it
moved
was up, I didn't know it was that much.
to
Wow.
Bristol? I thought when we were
And
asking about the
that's a lot of
census,
that is-
you know, going up or
Well,
whatever.
the census
Is English, she's
is
just
a
doing
little bit
fantastic.
behind on the numbers, I
Okay.
think.
I heard
Sorry,
Chief
they're
LaRoche
talking.
say
Yeah, it's okay, yeah.
I think when Charlie looked up the numbers, those numbers are a little bit behind, but people have been building houses and they still are. We have a new people that will be building on Pemigewasset Shores a new home.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, that part doesn't seem to be slowing down quite a lot, quite as much as I thought it would by now, but, they're still building, so. But they wouldn't be into the census numbers that Charlie looked up yet, so.
They wouldn't be, okay, so it'd be more than that, okay.
As soon as somebody buys that house on Pikes Point, they're gonna tear that down and rebuild it too, so.
Yeah, they're gonna have some trouble with that one. So if you look like even at the building permits, we anticipated for 2022, 7,500. We actually, it's $11,627 on building permits,
Wow.
so. We didn't, it is slowing down just a little bit, so we didn't dare to increase the proposed that much until we knew where the market was going, so, but we did increase it almost by 500, but.
There is a $79,000 block grant in there from last year that.
Oh, yeah, so that was encumbered, the $79,000 block grant was encumbered also. Where is that?
It's under Public Works.
Yeah, that's encumbered for a project for next year, so, but yes.
So you won't see that in revenues next year.
You'll see 120, potentially, I'm not sure how it gets booked, but we were also given 128,000, which is, we have to use by 2025 on bridges. So, and we can't use it to, put into a reserve fund.
Oh.
So we thought, great, we'll put it in the reserve fund and we'll establish the reserve fund with this money and then we can go forward to build. Nope, you gotta use it by the end of 2025.
Well, we could just match it and do one.
Wait, what? I'm sorry,
Just match it and do one lane.
right?
Speaking of one way.
Well, they've
well,
already
wait.
debated that.
You
It's
could.
been debated.
No, let's not go
And
there.
Headley struck down.
Oh, a one-way street, yes.
A one-way street right
A
there.
one-way street was debated, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an issue there with
Oh, yeah.
the two businesses on that road.
Yeah.
With the way the tractor trailers come in.
Yeah.
And they can't back into the lot going the other direction.
Okay, so,
Anything else?
no, I think we're done with revenues. So that's the two items of new business. We now will cover old business, and we have one item, which is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, which is January 10th. So I have a motion to approve,
I'll second.
and so a motion from Rob, seconded by Sue, to approve the minutes of the January 10th, 2023 meeting as distributed earlier this week. Does anyone need a minute to? I have looked at them and I didn't see anything that needed changing, but I am the type of person that after I've read them 6 times, I have trouble reading them again and seeing anything new. It's fine, I can't be a lawyer, I can't do that.
I'm fine.
So, not hearing any motions to amend, I will call a vote to approve the minutes of the January 10th meeting as written. All in favor?
Aye.
We have, I have to do roll call, so.
Yeah.
Aye. Carol Brown.
Aye.
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 Janet?
Aye.
6-0. They are approved. So we'll go through the rest of the agenda. Public comments, there are no members of the public here, so
But
correspondence.
we've added that as a section.
We've got it in a section in our agenda, but
Awesome.
we don't have anyone here to make a comment. Correspondence. Let me think how much of this is to discuss. So, correspondence, I guess I will say that in the meeting in our last meeting, when we were talking about home health agencies, there was a number of people, I believe, who expressed a desire for more information from these different agencies in order to help us evaluate them in next year's budget cycle. So I went and talked to Wendy Smith, who is the town employee who basically does all that work. So she has, right now what she has is she has a letter that's basically a standard letter and a list and a distribution list, and she emails it off to all those people. She has no trouble, she does not disagree. She said if we want to customize the letter to different classes, we want to have questions for home health people, we want to have questions for societal benefit groups or something, or even for specific people, we can do that. And she'd be willing to work with us. The issue that I want to make everyone aware is that this letter goes out in August, so we would need to come up with these questions. We probably would have to commit to either working after town meeting or
We can do a meeting in August.
or we could do a meeting in July or August to do all this. So I just want you to think about, are you willing to commit to that? Because we do have the opportunity, but it's gonna take some effort on our part. So I'm thinking we're gonna do it, but it will require probably.
I think it's
another
worth
meeting.
it, and I think we have a meeting in August
Okay,
to do it.
okay, very good. So we will tentatively plan on having, kicking off the cycle earlier next year in order to think about what additional information we want to request from people who are asked for non-town agencies that are asking.
And if we
for
could get at least a current copy of what is sent out. So we
Okay,
have that.
I have it on paper, I'll
Cool.
ask Ashley Wendy
So we
to
have that
send it to us
starting
electronically,
point and-
give it to Shannon, and she can distribute it with the minutes.
Yeah, cool.
I'm trying to think what else. The other thing I will just say is I got a note from Christina with, I think that so we budgeted last year for 2022 to support the Lakes Region Visiting Nurse Association. So it appears to me that the town does that on quarterly payments. So the town sent out a quarter of the amount of money late in '22, and Lakes Region VNA sent back what to me looked like a form letter that basically said, thank you for your support, we greatly appreciate it, and you didn't buy anything from us, we didn't sell you anything, so to the full extent of the law, this is tax deductible, which doesn't mean anything to the town.
Okay.
So it was a form letter, but it was correspondence, so I'll make you all aware of that. I think that's it for correspondence, for me. Anyone else have any correspondence that they've been involved with that they want to share with the? Okay, I thought not. Select Board. Carol,
Well-
what's the latest and greatest that we haven't already talked about?
Not select board, but at the legislature, there is a proposed law to no longer allow the governing board representative to the budget committee to have a vote.
Oh,
And I'm just throwing out that to you, see what you thought about it.
so it's state law, so they control that, and I would say, my first thought is I'm against it. I like having an odd number of people. I don't like ties.
You'd have to change the.
You'd have to change the
I
number of
think
the
it would
budget.
require, if it went through, I think that it probably would require that you have to change the number.
That was the first thing that occurred to me.
Change it to
I'll
a 7 or
have to-
5-member board.
I was trying to get it called up here because I just came to my mind last minute, but I haven't got it yet.
Well,
Did they say the reasoning? I mean, what's the reasoning?
It didn't say it that I recall, but
do you have
Do
any
you know
feel?
what
Do you
the
think
number
this is
is?
something that has a reasonable chance of actually passing? I mean, there's lots of bills that get filed, and a lot of them don't
most
get
of them
passed.
are inexpedient to,
Yes, legislative.
and that's when most of them are coming through now,
Yeah.
truthfully.
Do you know what the number is, Carol?
I'll tell you, give me a second.
Oh, okay. I have a website that I can pull up too.
While he looks at, I remember a comment, I did submit to the Bristol Buzz for our budget hearing.
Yes. So
And you submitted to Newfoundland.
So that's actually a good point. If anyone had noticed, we talked about that we wanted to encourage people to come out to the public meeting, and I did check, I wasn't on distribution and I am now, so I read the Bristol Buzz and I saw what Charlie had submitted, and I had contacted the Newfound Landing, and in the paper that came out late last week, there's a blurb in there about.
And,
the
and I think once we get our town budget section of the website built, we could also put that on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
To
So,
also advertise our public hearing
yeah, we did.
as the first part of like the public process of the budget.
But we'll put a special blurb on the news item and we'll have Kate link it to the Facebook page too, so it should be finalized tomorrow, so.
Okay,
Good.
so, did you find our bill number that Christina wanted?
HB 123. It says, Budget Committee membership, one member of the governing body,
Which is,
that's the existing law. Here's the change. Governing body members and school board ex officio members shall serve in an advisory capacity only.
okay,
They shall not vote on any matter before the committee, and their presence at any meeting shall not count towards the quorum requirement.
okay.
It doesn't say anything about changing the size.
So that's the school board though.
But I mean, the town changed the size of our committee from 13 to 7, so the town can control the
Right.
size of the board.
To any
No.
number they want.
You have to do it at a town meeting to
Right,
change
right.
the size of the board.
Yeah,
So if that article went through, you probably have to stay 6 until you could change your membership.
Yeah.
If that's what you were gonna do, so, unless
It's under
they
budget
address it.
committee, yes, it's underneath the existing budget committee, RSA 3215 1B. So that was the only one I had that seemed interesting to the budget committee.
okay. So speaking on comments and correspondence, I just thought of something else. I should write this stuff down so I don't have to remember. I had a phone call to Bob. I read an article in the newspaper, in the Concord Monitor, that talked about that the state is flush enough that they changed I don't know what they changed. They changed the expected amount that was gonna be required for contributions to the retirement fund. So I called Bob up and I said, is this news? I was all excited, we might be able to cut some more numbers. And he's like, no, they announced that back last summer, I know all that, and that's all baked in. And I said, but the library came and talked about they had the wrong number. And he goes, yeah, the library does their own numbers, I don't know. But I knew about it, you got the right numbers in there, you can't cut anymore. So, I wasn't surprised, I thought Bob would be on top of all those details, but I was a little disappointed because I thought I found a way to save some more money. But it's interesting, it sounds to me like the state is pretty flush at the moment, but it's only temporary, and so we're gonna go back to normal things in next year or the year later at the latest, so if we thought it was tough this year, it's probably gonna even be worse next year. All right. Is that it for any other member wanna make a comment?
I just had a follow-up for you. There was a question a little while ago, it's taking me a bit to find it. I should have mentioned it under the revenues. Net metering revenues, I think Rob had asked where that was. And Bob had, if you look at your revenue report, it's under electricity rebates. So it's under executive and the number is 3509-215. So, and that's the electricity rebates.
Yep.
So for this year, we've taken 11,484. For 2022, not this year, sorry.
How much?
$11,484, so.
Wait, where is it? 3,000?
If you look
Under it.
under the executive section,
The third line from the bottom in the executive on page 1 of the revenue report.
That's from solar panels? Is that what I'm saying?
it's from the net metering, so it's not just solar panels, it's also, I believe that we participate in the net metering with Ayers Island, as somehow incorporated in that, but yes, so it's both of those, so.
Okay.
And
You have
then,
good memory, because I didn't even remember asking that question.
well, I tried.
Now I remember it. but-
I try to keep a list and go back to make sure that I didn't miss anything, so if I did, sorry, but, I will also add under the staff comments thing, for anybody who isn't aware, our police chief, Chief McIntyre is leaving, his last day is today. And effective tomorrow, the new police chief will be Christopher Bean. So he
Who's
will.
been an intern, right? Was he
Christopher,
the intern?
he was interim previous before
Yeah.
them, and then he's the second in command lieutenant, there, so he's been groomed, so to speak, to
Yeah.
take over at some point. So the select board will probably announce it at their meeting tomorrow night for those who aren't listening Thursday, for those who don't listen tonight. But he officially tomorrow, he will take over. He will also be sworn in at the select board meeting on Thursday night, so.
What time is that on Thursday?
So 6 PM, I can't guarantee the swearing in will be right at 6 PM.
So again, what?
Because we have a 5 o'clock
Non-public.
non-public. Yeah.
So it's, because Rammer told me Wednesday night, so it is Thursday night.
Yes, sorry. So Thursday, there is I can't, I can't say that
Why don't we wait for
part of
that?
it, yeah. So at 6 o'clock, the swearing in, but they have a couple things to finish, and we have a non-public at 5.
Because his wife asked me to find out, because he.
We called her,
Oh, you did, okay.
yes. So we did call her. So, and he knows we've called her, so,
Okay.
so that part's okay.
And of course,
She was very good, she wanted to make sure the kids had a chance to go, so.
Yeah.
and we would be hiring some position that
There
is
is a position
opening
up there
as
on
people
the-
move
for
into,
police.
Is it?
Yeah, it'll end
The-
up, it should.
everyone
be-
moves up and
Is it
then
for,
we,
it's not lieutenant though, I believe it's probably,
Name also
Officer,
24
I don't know,
hours.
just have all the qualifications in there, but I just saw it there for the first time, so.
Is there an open position right now already?
well, as of tomorrow, there is.
As of tomorrow, there is,
Yeah,
but they're,
Yes.
there wasn't.
they're at full staff before
Yeah.
that.
They're correct, yep,
Yeah, it's just, I know fire is gonna open position,
Yeah.
but.
so,
So where's Chief McIntyre going?
Belknap County
Oh.
Sheriff, he's gonna be the second in command there, so it's closer to home for him.
Yeah.
We will, so as of right now, the plan is that the PD will begin their move the week of February 20th to this building. February 20th, the town will be doing a server move. It's a holiday, the building will be closed down, but there won't be any phones or internet for most of that day, for all of the town. The buildings that are like the fire, police, we will be rerouting their calls. Just their non-emergency calls. And then February 21st, the PD will be, they're set up here. Their server will be set up here, and the officers that are coming here will be moved into here by February 20th first. So
Okay.
as of right now, so
Yep, everything's subject to change, we
yes,
understand.
so.
All right, anything, Shannon, you don't have anything you need to say to us?
No.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Janet.
Where do we stand as far as, the electric car, credit to the homeowners? And also, the economic development, where is that money sitting right now?
I
It
don't,
was on the balance sheet.
so let me go to your first one, your question about, you said residential solar, right?
Yeah,
So that's the one where there was a proposal to basically reduce taxes or not tax residential solar. The select board has voted not to support that. There's some supposition that somebody might present that as a petition warrant article, but right now it is not on the warrant. It is not.
I didn't see it on the warrant, that's what made me ask.
Yeah, it's not there right now.
So we don't know what's gonna happen because the deadline is not till early next week. But
Okay,
right now, it's not on the warrant. It's not happening right now, but it's not precluded.
okay, just wanted to make
And,
sure.
and, and what, and what was your second question?
The, economic development, that, was on the balance sheet for 80,000, shouldn't have been on the balance sheet, and I just wondering, where is it?
I don't understand your question. Do you-
Revenue?
You're talking revenue, you're talking cost, expenses, you're talking
expense.
what?
I'm talking balance sheet.
Which one? do
What
you mean by
balance
that?
sheet are you talking?
Sorry, appropriation.
You're talking about, when
You
you
know
say,
what? I'm down in Florida, but I think I can scurry up some stuff that I'll find it for next meeting. How's that?
well, okay, but be careful, because next meeting is the public meeting, so we don't wanna, if you can find, if it's in the budget, find a line number, or if it's in revenues, find the line number and let us know, or let me know, and I'll follow up with Christina, and we'll be prepared with information for the next time we get together.
Okay.
Okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
And as far as solar goes, I found out it's 19 homeowners that currently have solar panels.
Oh, okay.
19's the number.
I didn't know. That sounds
Is what I've
low.
been told.
That sounds low to me, but I don't know.
Oh, I was gonna say, that sounds low.
It is, yeah, it is 19. So
Where'd you get
it
that
says
from?
there are currently 21
Someone was
properties with
trying to
some,
get.
there are 21 with
Thanks for
some
that.
type of solar. One doesn't have an assessment, one is an exempt charitable property, so in reality, there are 19 properties that are assessed for a total assessed value of $241,800
Of the solar itself.
of the for that's just solar
Yeah.
costs.
So we're talking total solar panels, about the assessment of a property.
Roughly 250,000, yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Just to give you an idea.
Okay.
And
the
that,
scope.
so this number was actually done in October. We have properties that have been added since. So, yeah.
I think it's a philosophical rather than a money discussion.
I agree.
Yeah. But
So,
I think it was interesting. I thought it was gonna be higher.
Yeah. so
That's
that
why I
would've
was
sold
like,
it too.
19. I
okay,
expected more like in that 50 range.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
all right. So we've done all the comments. I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Carol.
Roll call.
I need to roll call this. We'll start with Janet. Janet, we're motioning to adjourn. How do you vote? Carol?
Yes.
Rod?
Aye.
Paul, yes.
Aye.
So,
Yes.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.